Good morning, everyone. I would like to call the County Council Budget Workshop meeting to order. Will you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As it stands right now, we are one person short of a quorum of county council. We are not going to conduct any business today that requires action by county council. Online, we have Councilwoman Tabernick and Councilman McKellen. And as you see, we only have three of us. Others may be joining us. Obviously, the day is not a very good day. Some people are caught in traffic. Others will be coming online. So, public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. And I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Lawson makes the motion.
And I'll second it.
Ms. Brown makes the second. It is duly motioned and seconded. This agenda will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. Okay, we are ready. Mr. Robinson, you will have the opening remarks.
Good morning, Chairman and Council. Thank you all for being here this morning. The workshop this morning is just that. It is a workshop. The things that you will be presented today continue to be a work in progress as we refine each of our budget areas and our strategic planning process. I think it was early February, we met and we had a strategic planning process for council. The objective then was to listen to council, prepare for fiscal year 2025, and find those things that we needed to that we wanted to accomplish in the next year, and make sure that we funded those in our budget properly. So we had some action items that came from there. We began with 5 strategic priorities, and those were improving quality of life, improving customer service, addressing culture and community, investing in our economy, and concerns of public health and safety. So I will briefly talk about the categories there and the action items that staff has taken from that strategic planning meeting. So first, the number one conversation amongst council was the quality of life. Quality of life area generated the most conversation, and most of that conversation was around housing, workforce and affordable housing. Some of the things that were discussed were maintaining our relationship with the Regional Housing Trust Fund, which we have been doing and will continue to work with the Housing Trust Fund. We talk with their chairman at least once a week for the past few weeks. One of the next action items that came from the strategic planning meeting concerning workforce and affordable housing was the desire to collaborate with federal, state, local, private partnerships to generate interest in programs which could work together in the interest of increasing workforce and affordable housing options in Beaufort County. In order to do that, we've prepared a JAT, which is a job tool analysis, to create a job description for a housing specialist. We've added this FTE to our personnel budget for FY25. As this program begins to develop and the role proves to be necessary, among the responsibilities of this individual will be to work on behalf of the county to develop those partnerships to grow workforce and affordable housing in Beaufort County's market. That is a big task that's going to take a dedicated individual on staff to work towards. So we're prepared for that coming into next year. There was some discussion about continuing to work with Low Country Council of Governments as they request funds for the repair of homes for qualified candidates. We continue to do that. As a matter of fact, LOCOG sent us one yesterday that I approved. So that's a very good program. Another concern from council was senior housing and repair of homes for seniors. We've added this to our list of priorities for FY 2025. Beaufort County staff will continue to work to find some options to increase that ability to work with seniors and find some programs that help not only repair their homes, but keep them in their homes. Another initiative for workforce housing is to inspect Beaufort County's inventory of owned property. We have an inventory of our property, and it's a pretty extensive list. And so what we'll do in FY 25 is exploit that list to find properties which can be used for workforce and affordable housing. Some of the properties have different types of restrictions on them, so we have to be very careful to make sure that we don't violate any agreements that are on those properties. So we'll work on that list, and the impact that county-owned property can have on affordable housing is significant. Giving developers and community groups a place to build workforce and affordable housing will significantly reduce the cost. Next was continuing to work with our partners, Beaufort Memorial Hospital, and other partners who are working together with us to develop some workforce and affordable housing. We have been working on a project with Beaufort Memorial for nearly 2 years and are getting pretty close to the finish line on that project. So that is the quality of life. We talked about housing. That quality of life was our number one, and workforce and affordable housing was the number one most commented item during our strategic planning process. Also under quality of life, we spent a lot of time talking about recreation. One of the most important comments had to do with our master planning. Over the last few years, we've developed several master plans. Our public facilities, we did a public facilities study, we did a Parks and Recreation master plan, we did a facilities master plan, a space needs analysis, and a public landing, so our public boat landing facilities study. You'll see in the presentation that Mr. Larson will present that we have projects in each one of those categories, and I have a whole stack of those plans sitting on my desk that we've been reviewing. So we are certainly included projects for Parks and Rec and facilities increases, facilities maintenance programs in our 2025 recommended budget. All right, so we'll move on to the next item was improving customer service. Customer service will be the internal focus of staff for FY 2025. I'll work with our executive team to find opportunities to improve and execute on those ideas. One of the things that we're working on now, which is prepared to go out for bid, is the remodel of the administration building. So this chamber, the administrative hallways, and the front lobby. And that front lobby is often the first place that our customers see when they enter the building. That will be designed to have the flexibility to have either automated service or a live concierge at the front door. We're not sure what that's going to look like yet, but the design gives us the opportunity to do either of those things.
Now, at any time, can we interrupt you if there
Yes,
are
sir.
any questions or concerns?
Certainly.
So I'm going to put one in your ear. As we take a look at remodeling this building, there is a new type of way of doing business, and that's drive-through. And we may want to consider having people be able to drive up to the administration building to pay their property taxes, to get forms, something like that. That is being talked about in our municipalities, and I think that's something that we may want to explore here.
Yes, sir. That's unique. I haven't thought about that for a municipal building. Also on our customer service, conversation, we talked a lot about our website. So I've spoken with our IT director, communications, and our PIO, working together to evaluate our existing websites and what we can do differently. I understand that our website is around 4.5 or 5 years old, so it's time to refresh that and take a new approach. So you'll see some funds in next year's budget for communications and IT to look at that website. We had some conversation about our phone system. So our communications director has assured us that our phone system in the front lobby works properly, that when folks enter the administration building, if they need assistance, right now there's a phone there and a kiosk. Until we remodel. Right now, the kiosk is small. Hopefully, when we get done, if we continue to use a kiosk, it'll be something big. It's touchscreen. It's really effective and just helps folks get where they need to go. There was also a conversation about an AI program that could be used in some kind of automated device. So, we can develop the background of that. Folks can ask it a question, and it will help them understand what office they need to go, what forms they might need to do. It's hard for technology to take the place of a person there. So we may decide that the concierge is the right way to go. We'll work with
Mr.
staff.
Robinson, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir.
Have we decided to not implement a directory on the wall there with the names of the people who operate within the building with their room numbers associated with it?
No, sir. There is a directory on the wall now, and we have we printed a large poster board that's right next to the lobby door, as well as the electronic device to direct folks.
No, I meant in the long term, will there be something that is created that is permanently posted there that can be maybe a glass case that could open up so that if changes have to be made, they can be made with, I mean, I don't really know what the technology is these days that allows us to do that. I mean, there could be an electronic presentation of people and places that could change just with some software, because the old days it was just a directory board that you opened up and you had to go in and change it, yourself. Remember those little white
Yes, sir.
things? So there must be something these days that you can just use a software program and update it, and that way we could keep it current. Maybe just an electronic bulletin board up there to tell people who's in the building and where they are.
Yes, sir. We may end up with both. What you're describing is still in the foyer of the lobby there now. The old school board with the little white letters in it. It still exists, but I think the direction will be more of an electronic approach. It's a lot more flexible, much quicker to update, and we can put pretty pictures on it and all kinds of things as well.
What's the time frame for getting that implemented?
Well, sir, the project should be out for bid within the next week, and this is the project for the admin building refit, upfit, remodel. So that should be out in the next week. Then it's probably 30 days or so for us to select a contractor, go under contract, and then begin the work. So hopefully before July, we'll begin work on the remodel of the admin building. And that,
Okay, so when we put the traffic light in Windmill Harbor, that was part of the 278 Gateway project. We
Yes,
made
sir.
an exception and took it out of there for special attention. Can that lobby get special attention outside this contract you're bidding that won't be ready till July?
yes, sir, we can talk with our contractor and see if that can be where the project begins.
I was just talking about these things.
I'm not really talking about talking to the contractor to have the project begin there. I'm talking to have it as a standalone project so we can get this implemented as quickly as possible.
Yes, sir. There are some things we can do. We can certainly talk and see what your desire is for us to get done there. We have done some things in the lobby in the last few weeks. But if we need to put a larger screen there or something else like that, I think we have some assets in-house that we can put in there.
That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to have the lobby come out of this contract, a standalone contract, just to focus on getting the lobby done. Is that a possibility?
Sir, I don't think I would recommend that. That process would delay work to get done for the lobby. We'd have to go back out for bid specifically for the lobby, remove it from the existing contract, and then start that process over. We are ready to go out for bid within probably the next week or so for the existing project.
So that the lobby probably won't be done until the fall, is that what you're saying?
No, sir, I'm not sure the timeline yet. Once we get the contract out for bid, we begin to work with the contractor. We can prioritize the lobby as one of the first projects to be done.
This will be coming out of next fiscal year funds, right? So it won't be even starting until the summer.
No, sir, there's funding now. The funding will be transferred from the current budget into the 4010 budget. So it's a capital improvement project that spans budget years.
Okay, so what's out there now, and then I'll drop this, is this poster board on an easel. Is that what you're referring to as to help people find the service they need in the building?
So there's a poster board on an easel. Inside right next to that easel is an electronic device that folks, if they want to see the auditor's office, they push the button. There's a larger screen that comes up. It identifies where the auditor's office is, gives them their room number. Next to that is a phone that they can pick up. They pick up the phone. That phone transfers them to a live person that can help them. As well as in the lobby is the older information board that has the little white letters in it that help people find out where they need to go.
Okay, the last time I tried that, all I got was a voicemail. So I'm just telling you my disappointment with the way this situation is developing.
Yes, sir. So since the last time you used the phone system, our communications folks worked on the phone system to ensure that when someone picks up the phone, it is answered by county staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we recognize we have quite a bit of work to do in customer service. Again, our team will work together to find those areas where we can improve and then initiate plans for those ideas to improve customer service for our citizens. The next strategic plan we talked about was community and culture. The number one thing that council that you discussed during this community and culture portion was investing in the maintenance of our passive parks and protection of wildlife. You will see in the Parks and Recreation budget an increase that supports that mission. We also had a conversation that with some discussion about a plastic bag ordinance coming forward. Ms. Howard then talked about Keep Beaufort County Beautiful team working on a consideration of that plan. So we'll be looking forward to visiting that when it comes back to county staff to address. There was also some discussion about needs for additional active parks and sports fields. I can tell you that staff probably looks every day for opportunities for additional sports and recreations fields and areas and in all ends of the county. Recreation is so important to our families and children to get them out in our in our beautiful parks and visit places. So it is it's a big task. First, finding the dirt that we can purchase, and then finding the dollars to develop it into great recreation. And all of that comes with the cost of continuous maintenance. So all those things have to be considered when we work on these projects. But every day, I think we pass a sign that says for sale, and somebody stops and looks at it and really evaluates what it is, because it's just that important to us.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Deb.
There you are.
I was trying to remember the property Mr. Sullivan talked about. Remember when we were in that ATAX meeting?
Yes.
You know where it is better than I do.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
one of the ones we might consider?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's not for sale right now, but I do know a piece of property behind and adjacent to that one recently sold for a similar project.
Okay.
So there's potential.
Yeah, it looked like a good place.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next on our list was invest in our economy. We talked about education as one of the most important things for us to consider, and that is investing in workforce education and healthcare. Those two things kind of go together. Some of the projects we talked about with Beaufort Memorial Hospital and TCL and the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. We're in active partnerships with Beaufort Memorial Hospital now, and working with both of our higher education institutions to find ways to support them. Ms. Christmas will talk about that a little bit when we talk about bonding. So some of the discussion that we had during the strategic planning was an opportunity to look at bonds to help support these organizations. So she will talk about that briefly. Economic development, the things we talked about here were focused on infrastructure, project, and business development. Infrastructure, we have a transportation referendum that should come forward for third reading soon, and that will be a big step forward towards achieving those goals if that passes by the public in November. We also will continue to work closely with our Economic Development Corporation. John O'Toole and his team are always seeking to create new opportunities and attract creative businesses that are well suited for Beaufort County. And I think that's an important aspect of what they do. He's just not looking for anything to bring here, but those businesses and creative opportunities that are suited for our community. Also, you asked that John and his team provide quarterly updates for county council. So we've had discussions with John, and he is absolutely willing to do that and looks forward to addressing council on a quarterly basis with the things that they're doing on our behalf. Lastly, we moved on to public safety and health. Health was one of the things that we discussed quite a bit, and there was some discussion about consolidated emergency services. Staff's goal for 2025, considering consolidation of emergency services, is to build a team of local emergency response professionals. I'm going to ask this team to assess the situation, to create a team of stakeholders, community members, local officials, emergency responders, with a couple of questions to start with. And the first question is answer the why. And that would be, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? What are potential benefits of consolidation? What are the unintended consequences of that? This is really the way to start the conversation. And then second, answer the how. If we decide this is the right way to do it, then how do we make this happen? And finally, the question is when. This is a large project, a huge undertaking, and timing is going to be very important. So that one of my goals for 2025 is to put together this team of our local professionals who are well qualified and well versed in the needs of Beaufort County to do that work. So we'll begin doing that. We discussed briefly some funding for our north of the Broad and south of the Broad hazardous materials team. So we have folded a little, some funds for them into our general fund budget. Right now, both of those teams operate out of emergency services buildings, fire departments and EMS supported. And their funding mostly comes from a state LEPC program. They need some help. So Beaufort County is going to invest some funds there. Yes, sir.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, sir.
Somebody brought to my attention that the Beaufort Water Search and Rescue,
Yes, sir.
they don't have any type of funding. They have to raise their own funds. Is that
Yes, sir.
accurate?
Yes, sir, that's true. So I've talked with the, I guess he's their captain. We've looked at their requests and their budgets, and we'll be supporting their group as well.
Okay, is that a way we can start working it into our budget?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir,
right.
it's there.
I know they provide a great service and,
Yes, sir.
yeah, thanks.
All right. And lastly, we talked about, in health and safety, a peer-to-peer programs for inmates, talking about trying to reduce the number of our population that go in and out of our detention center. So working with some counseling programs and peer-to-peer programs to help reduce the number of inmates who come in and out of our detention center. You heard from Colonel Grant on Monday about programs they're working on, and I think we're working in the right direction already. And there may be some opportunity for us to increase, invest in additional counseling to help with that program. We had a brief discussion about our Second Chances Court. And also there was some conversation for us to consider some options for day programs for unhoused residents. So those are some other things that staff will continue to work on. I don't have a lot of detail to share with you, but I wanted you to know that we captured those things and we'll continue to work towards that. Any other questions about the strategic planning process and where we're going?
Any comments from council members?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
I know previously I'd asked that go back and have a review of our ordinances.
Yes, sir.
Is that continuing?
Ongoing.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
gotcha.
Paula, any questions?
No, I don't. And thank you, John. You've been very thorough.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah, I
it.
think you covered just about everything, I think.
Mark, any questions? Tab well, let's start with Tab. Any questions, Tab?
No, I've been, writing it all down as he goes. I think he captured what we talked about, so I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Alice, any comments?
No, I appreciate that he mentioned, the plastic bag ordinance. That's been a priority for me to get that revised, and I think it is for Paula too, with the Keep Beautiful Committee. Thank you.
Larry? You're still on mute.
Nope, nothing further, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
When
sir.
we started this process, that opening day, I came up with 11 different topics about quality of life. And as you were talking, I checked them off. There's only a couple that we haven't touched on, but we actually did that as part of some of the topics that we approved. One was trash and recycling. We're getting new trash and recycling bins. I think that's a great step. The other thing that we have not touched on, but it is very, very important, is our environment. Certainly, we showed that with green space as part of the referendum that we're going to have in November. We're also going to have it as a green belt, because green space goes away, green belt will take its place, and so we will continue to protect properties. Two other things that are very important to the quality of life here are our utilities. We heard yesterday from Beaufort Jasper Water and Sewer in a meeting that I had, and we heard from Dominion Energy and Palmetto Electric about their plans for the future and how desperate it is needed to expand because of the amount of growth we're going to have in the next 20 and 30 years. So that's very important. And last but not least is our military. They are a unique group of individuals that are part and parcel of Beaufort County. So all of the things that you have said are already here, and so I appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir.
I think
Thank you
we
so
have
much.
A good process that we're doing for this budget this year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay?
Next on the agenda is Eric Larson.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
They told me I had 3 hours, right?
Yes,
What did you say?
Les.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I will not be near that long.
Okay, good.
As they're pulling up our presentation, I just want to introduce myself again. I'm the Capital Projects Director, so supervise facilities management with our, in tandem with our Facilities Management Director, Mark Rosenau. Carolyn Wallace is our CIP manager. She's sitting over my shoulder, and she and I put this presentation. Most of the data in this presentation is hers. I'll take credit for it, but she did all the hard work, and she's here with her computer ready to go. If you start to ask me tough questions, I can pull her up to the podium. What I want to do is I want to go through the capital project planning process and how we come up with our list of projects that we recommend for funding. I'll go through that process briefly with you. Talk about the categories of projects. They kind of get put in different categories or different silos as we go through this process. And then all these slides that I have, that we have for you today, have all the projects listed by title. And at the end of this process, when we get close to a recommended budget and we've gone through that process, we'll publish the CIP book, which will have all these projects listed, which ones got funded, which ones didn't. And then there's a data sheet for every single project. So you'll have that going forward throughout the year that you can refer back to, that has a description of these projects in detail, their dollar amounts, account numbers that they're coming out of, the different pots of money, so to speak. So you'll have that towards the end, but today you'll have this PowerPoint presentation that just has a list of the projects and a summary of their dollars. So again, each year we collect, assemble, prioritize, and select capital projects for the budget process. We typically receive far more requests than we have realistic budgeting for, so it's important that we have a well thought out process in how we select those. We want to create a logical, defensible process that we score and rank and prioritize these projects that are meeting the goals of the county, meeting the strategic goals as John was just presenting, so that we can maximize what dollars we do have to get the highest return on investment and meet the needs of the county. So I'll go through that process quickly. Just to give you a little background, we request and receive these budget requests all the way back in December. So towards the end of December, first couple of weeks of January, we assembled all these requests from department heads. We quickly consolidated them into a summary sheet and tried to come up with the total ask dollar amounts. And then we meet with the executive team. And the executive team towards the end of January looks at these projects and puts their own lens on it, their own priorities and criteria that they want to rank projects on. And then we take that data, which happened towards the end of January, and then we move it into coming up with a budget submittal that is physically constrained and to the point where we've matched projected revenues with project dollars to come up with a list of ranked and unranked and funded, unfunded requests. So that is the time frame. I kind of jumped out of order here. Some things that are going on in the program so that you know, next year we'll be switching to a different software. Finance has purchased a software that will be used for budgeting. This year we did it the old-fashioned way with an Excel spreadsheet, which was very effective, but it is a little cumbersome because a lot of that stuff's not automated. So next year you'll see some changes with our software process. And then on the accounting side, Finance Department has spent a lot of time improving the way that we'll be accounting for projects. We have the multi-year project codes that John referenced a second ago that allow projects to move from year to year without the fear of losing funding or misplacing the funding as we move from the transition. And then we're using project accounting, which is another level of detail that will allow us to extract information on the finances of our projects within the Munis financial software and help us track our projects year after year. Quickly on the ranking and selection criteria. So the first lens that we put on here is whether or not the project's fully, partially, or unfunded. We give priority to projects that are already in place, obviously. We're already down the path, we've started the project, we've invested in the project, let's continue to move that forward. And then we have projects that have some money, but not all the money they need. And then we have the newer requests, or the projects that get carried forward that don't have funding at all. So that's the first lens. Then we look at that planning, design, construction phase. A project that's in construction and needs additional funding is going to get priority over a project that's in planning or design, because again, we're wanting to push that project forward and complete it, not let it languish and not get finished. The next lens gets into those quality of life issues, those strategic planning issues. Is this a restoration of infrastructure? Is it for life and health safety of the public or our staff? Are we expanding services, economic development? You get the idea that we're trying to put a lens on these projects and rank them and score them so that projects that are meeting our goals and meeting our objectives are getting higher priority. And then the last bullet that's somewhat covered on the screen here, but you've got it in front of you, the little windows are covering up. The executive team looked at essential services, thank you, mandated needs. Is this project related to a mandated requirement by the state, federal, or local law? We have several projects and programs that are required to get certain things done. Those obviously need to be funded so that we don't fall out of compliance. Public-facing projects at community centers. We talked about the front lobby here a little while ago. Those kind of projects that are going to impact the community and impact the public as they interact with the county are getting priority as well as facility needs. As mundane and unglorious and unexciting it might be, having functional HVAC systems, having carpet that doesn't look worn and stained, walls that are dirty and stained, roofs that are leaking, those are priorities that we need to maintain to keep our facilities up and running, not only for our employees but the public. Those get attention, and that all gets us to the finish line of where we're at today with a list of capital projects.
Okay, before you move on.
Yes, sir.
Could you go back to that slide? I've always been of the opinion that a capital project is something you don't have, that it's new.
Mm-hmm.
Restoring existing infrastructure sounds to me like that should be maintenance. So what's the difference? What am I missing?
To a certain extent, it is maintenance. We do have an operating budget for maintenance, routine maintenance. A project that would fall into the category of capital would be a complete replacement or restoration of a system or a facility so that we basically restore its life for the next 10, 20 years.
Okay.
When we do the remodel of this whole entire corridor, this hallway here, including this space, that's capital because it's not just routine. We're not just freshening the paint. We're actually gutting it and rebuilding. Replacement of HVAC systems, those kind of things would be considered capital.
Okay.
That answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. In particular, I'll just tell you the Rust Point boat launch. I know we don't own that, but how does the process work if there's emergency funding or a project that comes up mid-budget that needs to be prioritized? What's that process like?
So it could happen one of two ways. Each department, and boat landings fall under Public Works, they'll have an operating budget for their boat landings, and they're budgeting contingency into that and for those unforeseens. What you don't see on these slides today, and it is built into the budget proposal, there is a contingency within capital as well.
Okay.
Because we know, inevitably, we know something big's gonna pop up in October, and it's like, oh, we didn't plan for that. Well, we have a small amount in professional services and construction money where we can pull from to fund a capital need project that comes up that wasn't envisioned back in December. And, here we are in March, and then 6 months from now, something pops up. So we have those two methods.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Hey, Eric, thanks very much for this. I appreciate your articulate presentation and the way you are prioritizing things that need to be broken out for special attention. The summary you've provided is very complete, very clear, and congratulate you on the work that you're doing.
Thank you. All right, moving on. So we're gonna get into the weeds. I'm not gonna read these slides, you're gonna have them for later. But I wanted to list out all the projects that we had going on and give you a status on those and get into the dollars, so you can kind of see the magnitude. This is the FY '24 plan, the status on those projects. There is not a single project in FY '24 that has not been touched at this point. It is either in concept design, full design, construction, or completed, or will be completed by the end of June. And so here's a list of those projects. You know, as the director of the department, I'm proud to say our team is just killing it. We are, you know, full throttle. We're getting a lot of work done, and this is a list of the projects that we've completed in the year or will have completed by the end of the year. And it's an extensive list.
Hey,
I'm
Eric, before
sorry.
you move on, just a quick summary, what was the Arthur Horn Building Phase 2? What did that consist of?
Arthur Horn Building Phase 2 is the demolition of the remainder of the building that's still standing, and then
good.
construction of a parking lot that serves the new Arthur Horn Building, which,
Great.
in that same footprint.
Okay,
We
great.
have
Thank you.
that contracted for demolition. We have a need to rebid the parking lot once the demo is done. Right now, the delay is the removal of the server. And when the server is finally removed and taken offline, we can decommission the air conditioning. We can do the hazardous mitigation that's needed for the asbestos in the building. We can tear it down and move forward. I'm knocking on wood that we get that done. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a date anticipated for that? And why, I thought, is that server moving into the new building, or is it going to be excess?
John may want to get into it. The server is in the new building. It's the fiber connections, and that old server is still feeding certain departments due to the fiber connections by Hargrave, and those are all scheduled to be completed by April. And then as soon as that last connection is disconnected from the server, IT department will decommission it and remove it, and then we'll continue on.
And so what's the
Patrick.
anticipated date of full demolition?
We can have it demolished. We can have it demolished in 30 days once we get the server out. We already have the bid. We just need to do the contract. The threshold of the cost is such that it can be handled administratively. And then we'll start bidding the parking lot immediately. It's about a 75-day process to put it under construction. And then that construction should take 60, 90 days. So we should be able to demolish before June. We should be able to demolished and ready to go to construction on the parking lot by May or June, and then we'll have that parking lot done by early fall. That's all contingent on that April date, and Patrick's fixing to update you on that.
So just to clarify, it's not a server that's in the building. There's some, obviously the building's been around for a long time. There's some old cables that go into the building and kind of turn around and go right back out and feed some of the law enforcement functions, feed some county functions. And so we have worked with the IT at the law enforcement to have that cable scheduled to be moved. So I think that's going to happen first of April. And then once that gets done, we'll meet with all the elected IT teams and make sure that we are good to go and that everything is clean out of that building before we destroy it. So currently, we have a cable that runs into the building and kind of just turns around and goes right back out. It's been there 20 years, and that's what we're waiting on to get removed. So the vendor's been contracted for that, so it should hopefully happen, like I said, 1st of April.
Good, thanks.
And Joe, I have one. And just to clarify, on this list, the All Joy Beach Renourishment, and
Yes,
for
sir.
anyone watching, obviously, I want to commend y'all for getting the landing done in a quick period of time, especially before summertime comes along. It is substantially, if not 100% completed right now. And part of that was part of the All Joy Beach Renourishment, which has not been done. That was part of that group, so we're still pushing that, trying to get that taken care of, but we're in a standoff with OCRM at this point. But again, just to make sure everyone knew that has not been completed, but again, the landing has. Contracted a great job. You guys brought them in. They're in and out quick, and I think everyone wishes it was bigger, but that's always the case. But it's very, very, very good job.
Yes, sir. Well,
I
kudos
wanna
goes to the
second
Public
that.
Works Department on that one. That was their project. The renourishment, the reason it's in the completed category, and thank you for that clarification. Capital Projects had the design project for the renourishment, and the project basically ended when DHEC says, no, you're not going to be able to do that. And you're absolutely right on the status of that project. But that's why it's in that completed category. From my perspective, project was started, initiated, came to a logical conclusion, and that funding was then reallocated to the construction that you're referring to. So, thank you for that clarification.
I have a question on the Alljoy Beach renourishment. So what's there is gonna be there? I mean,
There was money set aside, and I'm not sure how much the boat dock cost, but we allocated money through ATAX for the nourishment and the landing, so there still should be extra money in the ATAX for that amount. I don't think it should be allocated anyplace else, so I'm not sure how much is left after we've done the dock, and that's something we can find out. But,
okay, because Carolyn Smith was talking about.
they're still pushing to have that done down there.
Oh, okay, all right, got it. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Aaron.
And one final thing, on behalf of Ms. Tabernick, who isn't here in person and always says, well, what does that mean? For those who are looking on, there's BIV. Can you explain what
Oh.
that is and where that is?
Well, my slide has a lot of data, so I used acronyms as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Beaufort Industrial Village is a series of buildings that the county owns and houses human resources, finance, capital projects and engineering department. It's located off of Burton Hill Road. It's close to voters registration. If in records management is BIV 4, 5, or 6, I forget. We got so many numbers. But that's what BIV is. My apologies.
No.
It's our office
I'm
complex that
just
we
playing
have.
tab,
Yes,
because
sir.
she would have done that if she was here in person.
Yes, and I actually knew what it was, but you are right, Joe. Thank you for the public that's watching. It's
Yeah.
important to know.
And Joe, I have one question as
Sure.
well.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned with the Arthur Horn building, decommissioning the HVAC.
Uh-huh.
Does that get scrapped? Do we utilize that for another project? Not
That
just one, but in
unit will go
general?
to the courthouse.
Okay,
It's a temporary measure, and then at that point, it probably will be decommissioned. We have a project to do the replacement of the chiller at the courthouse, and the lead time on that piece of equipment is almost 2 years. So the current chiller that's on the old Arthur Horn building, which is functioning to condition that space for the cables and switchgear that Patrick was referencing, when that's decommissioned, it will be taken across the parking lot and used as a temporary to replace the one that's already failed. We're renting a unit now to operate the chiller system for the courthouse now. So we drop the rental contract, we remove that piece of equipment, we reuse the one we have. It becomes a second stopgap measure until the new piece of equipment's in next year.
yeah, I just want to make sure we're utilizing what we had.
Yes, sir.
If we're able to.
Right. At that point, it's at its end of useful life, and it's gonna be worth more as a chunk of metal.
Yeah.
All right?
Any further questions? Okay, continue on.
This is a summary of the 2025 CIP plan. I will highlight, just to navigate you through this. So these are the projects, the 212 projects that were submitted for FY '25 consideration are listed here, and they fall into 3 categories. Some are fully funded, again, partially funded, and then unranked projects, which we call unranked/unfunded projects. And then we have a whole series of projects that aren't seeking CIP funding because they have their own funding, or they're seeking special funding. They won't occur unless they get their special funding. A grant, a bond issue, a 1 penny sales tax, as you'll see here in the data here in a little bit. So the current projects that you have in the 2025 recommendation, the 212 projects, there's been 44 million spent on them prior to this current fiscal year, with another 106 allocated for this year. So there's already a large investment in these projects that are being submitted for 25. Then there is additional ask of some of those projects. These projects, they tend to be we call them fully funded, and I put those in air quotes, but they still need more money going forward. So you see that ask in 25, and then you start to see all the newer projects that are, this is the first time they've been requested, or they've been requested in the past and never received funding, so they're, again, being requested a second time, third time, et cetera. And you see that ask of being $236 million this year. That continues on because we are planning for 2 years now. We're submitting and doing a 2-year plan, and you see that 255. So the number keeps growing, the needs keep growing, and as you're gonna see in a second, 236, 255 is really a not realistic number, but it is our needs. It is the needs that are being identified by department heads, but it far exceeds any logical amount of revenue that we could project. So that's a summary. Digging into it a little bit more, this is FY '25 only. It shows the fully funded projects and the departments and the breakdown of that 55 million of additional money that's needed for these projects that were deemed fully funded. And again, I use air quotes. The reason they might be asking for more money, but deemed fully funded is that as they get into design, the budget increases. They get into construction, the budget increases. The cost of services keeps going up. The scope of the project changes. Any number of reasons are causing these projects to need additional funding. And so again, as was discussed a few minutes ago, we're kind of giving these some of the higher priorities because we want to make sure these projects continue to finish all the time, making sure we understand why the prices are going up and can defend why the prices are going up. So you see the 55 million, the engineering, the purple pie wedge, that's transportation related. You're going to see this skewed on almost every slide. The big chunk is transportation-related projects. These projects, as you've heard Jared talk about time and time again, are very expensive, and they just dwarf all the other projects combined. When you take that off, the pie starts to look a little bit more normal. But you'll see that time and time again, and again you see several projects. And again, it's that proposed 1 cent that they need to push a lot of these projects forward.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
On the passive parks, that 2 million is, how much of that is unfunded that they need? Or is that, as you know, in the bond referendums, we had money set aside for passive park projects?
These are requests, now this is requests for dollars, not necessarily CIP money, but they've got 2 million here, and this is additional monies for projects that are currently ongoing, and then some of the construction money for projects that are planned and designed and ready to go to construction.
Okay,
and it's
I'm
new.
not sure that answered my question.
Okay, there's 2 projects
How much
here.
of that 2 million is not funded through the bond referendum for passive parks? And if you need to get back to me, that's fine, but, there is money sitting there through the Rural and Critical Lands Bond Referendum for passive parks construction.
Stephanie just whispered in my ear and said that 2 million is the bond referendum money.
Okay, so there's no additional money needed. Okay, thank you.
Well, no.
Okay, John.
So let's start over on passive parks. So we have a long list of parks that are proposed. Some are already designed. There are 2 projects. One, there's $500,000 to do safety improvements at Fort, I always get that one wrong, Fort Fremont. That's the guardrails, there are some drop-offs, there are some things that are very dangerous, so that takes care of that. So the bond money, and I'm assuming, Councilmember Howard, you're talking about the $5 million that was the percentage that came out of rural and critical. That money has been expended for the most part, and what we have done is we have prioritized the different park projects, and we have gone out for A&H tax money, we have gone out for different grants, we have looked at different, all the opportunities that we can to find money to pair with those dollars, and we've gotten to the point now where to build parks, we're struggling to come up with dollars, almost $2 million for this Ladies Island park. So Stephanie, if you'll come up and talk about the ones that have been funded through the bond, approximately how much we have left, and the unfundeds, and why we're asking for CIP funds, even though we had $5 million for parks as allocated through the bond. Would you address that?
Yeah. So the amount that's on this slide is the fully funded projects. So right now, we've got a trail extension at Crystal Lake Park. We've got the pier at Whitehall Park. We have the Okatee River Park that's fully funded. So all of Camp St. Mary's planning is part of that. And then which other one? Ford Shell Ring, which is we're working with the town of Hilton Head Island. So all those projects are in some level of funding to construction and are funded for this year going into next year as well. So that amount up there is what is currently being spent on projects being worked on this fiscal year.
So that, I'm still a little bit confused. So that is a delta or not? It sounds like it's not a delta.
For the two projects.
The 2,118,000.
No, that $2,118,500 is the current amount of bond funding being spent now going into next fiscal year, because the projects are crossing fiscal years. I have another approximately slightly less than 2 million remaining that is also being used next fiscal year for other things too, that I think Eric is gonna
Okay,
get to.
okay, thank you.
But the net delta, I just want to be clear on this because we're really short money in passive parks. The delta is upwards of $10 million when you look at all of the parks.
Right.
So under the funded list, bond monies are being used. There are requests being made through the CIP budget process for two, which is the Ladies Island Park and, what's the name of the Ladies Island Park?
The Pine.
The Cherry Hill Park and
Oh, and Pineview.
Pineview, there you go. Sorry, I'm struggling. Pineview and the Fort Fremont.
Right.
So that's where your deltas are. Yes, we're encumbering the funds from the bond, but there's a huge hole that we're trying to work our way out of. So we are actually asking for over $2 million in addition to those to get those two projects going.
Right.
I hope that's clear as mud. Yeah, so without
It
breaking out
is.
spreadsheets and showing where every
Right.
piece is, it's kind of difficult.
I believe,
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Thank you.
I believe it was our understanding that what we were gonna try and do is, we have so many passive parks out there. We have so many in various stages. We were gonna try and finish as many of those that we have started before we start new ones.
Absolutely.
And that's what this money is all about.
And that was my question with the Pine View, with this ask, is that gonna help get that project started for this fiscal year, or is it, planned for next fiscal year?
Yeah, Pineview, right now, we have completely finished the civil planning, so the ask is next fiscal year for construction. And I've submitted a PARD grant, and we've got a couple other funds that I'm trying to find money.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody understand now?
I do, but I have a question about back to Fort Fremont. Is that a federal park?
No.
No, it's not? Well, I
Fort
thought-
Fremont?
Yeah.
Fort Fremont Preserve is a county-owned property, but we have volunteers who run the history center there.
Right.
Okay, but is the federal government involved in that in any way?
No, ma'am.
No, it's not, okay. All right, I'm sorry, I'm not that, I mentioned Fort Fremont last year and I got yelled at, so.
So I may have caused more confusion than I saw with my last slide. This was the slide, I got ahead of myself. This is a slide that kind of answers Ms. Howard's question. So of that 55 million, you see the CIP fund ask is about 2.5. The rest of the projects are funded by another source. And I got ahead of myself with the sales tax thing when I was looking at that big purple blob on that last pie chart. But I think we've answered that question. But you see there's multiple sources of funding that these projects go after, and only a portion of them are actually asking for the funding through the CIP fund because they've already identified their project funding from another source. And so this is just another chart, same 55 million split up a different way. Okay? These are among those projects that are in that 55 million. This is the projects, some of these are, all of these, excuse me, are projects in '24 that will be continuing on. This kind of pairs up with the previous list I showed you of projects that'll be completed. These are the projects that won't be completed by the June 30th, but are already in progress in some form or fashion. And it's an extensive list. Again, I won't go over it, but you have these, and you'll have the detailed description of the projects with the CIP book once we get through this process.
Gotcha.
And there's several, as Stephanie and Chuck pointed out, there's several projects related to their program, as well as a lot of other departments' requests that we're currently working.
I have one question, on that slide. The, Alvin Settles pool deck rehabilitation, that won't keep the pool from not opening, will it, this summer?
No, that should not. That is removing and replacing the caulk sealant in the cracks the joints between the slabs, and we're currently getting quotes on that. We should be able to get that done. That work is quick once it's done, started, and we're getting quotes from contractors. The dollar amount on that is small. You probably won't see that coming through committee because the dollar amounts on those are so, on that project so small.
Okay, just want to make sure that that's heavily used pool in the
Yes,
summer.
ma'am. Yeah. It also involves, it says pool deck rehab, but it also involves removal and replacement of that water slide that's there. So that's
Also,
ongoing.
Eric, what is the Hilton Head Airport foam cart training? What is that?
I know John's not here. I'll do my best to explain that. That is a request. That is a piece of equipment they use for firefighting.
Oh,
They use
okay,
foam
all right.
for firefighting with jet fuel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that is and
Got
the
it.
reason it's in the continuing in is I think they have funding and they're trying to source that project. That's more of a capital equipment purchase, to be honest, but it falls in this category. Because it's more than just a vehicle. And that's one of his projects. It's actually something that the CIP department, Facilities Management Department, we actually aren't managing. We just watch the money. Any other questions? Transportation-related projects are on a separate slide because they're so extensive, so I included them.
Eric, I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Sun City Fire EMS Station 39, I know is it in design phase, I understand?
They are in the procurement phase to select a consultant to do the design. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then, but we have that fully funded, correct?
It is funded for $5 million, and that early estimates say that's enough for design and construction. But I think they're still in the process of procuring the design services. They haven't started design work yet.
So, and I know this is gonna be a bad question, but they can't just use the one that did the last couple stations?
They are going to do that tab with modifications. They have a set design for all of the fire stations. They seem to be quite acceptable as we move forward. And when they find the piece of property to put it on, they do modifications of the design. So they don't, they're not starting from scratch. I did see, though, on one slide back there, it said it was EMS Station 34.
That's a separate project?
Okay.
That's the William Pope.
Yeah, 34 is William Pope, next to the hotels and
I thought
Ocotillo
that was
Health.
done.
It is. It's on the
Okay.
completed list.
Okay.
Yeah. We're in the
You
process of
said-
punching it out right now, but it's completed.
Eric, you said Station 39 has to go to bid.
Where-
That's not what Cassidy just said.
No, so to clarify, they intend to recycle a floor plan and a layout and a building design that they like, that they've used a
Right.
couple of times now. However, you have to procure design services to modify the design, to fit the site, and you have to do the site design, because the site's unique.
Right.
And the dollar amount associated with that requires us to go through the procurement process to retain the services of the consultant design consultant, and we're in that process right now. That is the step the project is in.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Eric, with regard to Camp St. Mary's, is that on schedule according to plan?
Yes, sir, we have multiple trains going in parallel directions on that. We are currently advertising for demolition of the existing structures. Stephanie had a previous project to do a concept design on the park, which is complete. We've taken that concept design and given it to civil engineering and landscape architecture design consultants to put the construction drawings together for the new park. And those proposals were actually received last week, and we're in the process of interviewing and selecting a design consultant for that project. The demolition will be done by the time we make that selection, and we'll bring forward the selection of the designer to finish that design work, and then a future project will be for the construction.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a call about that. We have a lot of, listen, there's community interest in everything we're doing, of course, but there's a great deal of community interest in how this is proceeding. And I'm gonna just give you a call so you can summarize that again for me, so I can take a couple of notes and then inform some people about the success that you're having moving forward. So congratulations on getting that done. Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, again, I mentioned the transportation projects are listed separately because they're an extensive list. but that falls into the same category as the previous. So then we move on to newer projects. We call these the ranked projects. These are the projects that really are competing for funding the most because of the lack of funding they've had in the past, or their brand-new identified project. Those are 44 projects that ultimately, through this process of selection criteria, ranking and scoring and prioritization, 44 projects came up with recommendation for funding. Again, that was based on a projected revenue somewhere between 25, 30 million is what we started with back in December and January. And so you see the breakdown by department on these projects. Of significance, you'll see a couple of them just, they jump out at you because of the dollar amounts and the fact you see one project for 5 million, for example, for emergency medical services. That's actually not Station 39, that's another project. But it jumps out at you because of the dollar amount and the wedge on the pie that it creates. Parks and Rec has several projects, as you see. Their request is 11 different projects, so they have a large ask for multiple projects. The detention center gets several projects recommended in here. This is getting back to preserving the existing infrastructure. The detention center is just way overdue for some refresh and some renovations and repairs to its exterior and its interior. And then there's some pretty substantial projects that's on their own are large dollar amounts that are added together. And there was one in particular I highlighted, and it's from the sheriff's office. It's a needed upgrade of some of their hardware and software that they use in their units and in their dispatching, that sort of thing. With Motorola, it's called Vesta. And if you ask me questions, I'm definitely turning around and asking for help from the audience on that one. But that's a substantial project in itself, and I wanted to highlight it because it was dollar amount. It was a very large project. You see the distribution of the projects there. When I flip to the next slide, did I skip one? Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have the percentages. There's not identified. It's all capital, okay. Yeah, it's all capital, so the pie would have been just one big red circle, so we didn't have that listed. Here's those projects, those 44 projects listed out for you. I tried to sort them out the best I could by department so that if you were scanning through, you could kind of see the groupings of the projects. Again, I won't go over them, but they span the gamut. Essential services, sheriff, detention center, parks and rec, our facilities. There's a lot of projects here and a lot of infrastructure related projects. Again, facilities management and capital projects, we geek out and really get into these projects, but you could probably care less if we replace a roof or an HVAC system until it starts leaking or if it's not working, which I don't know if it's me at the hot seat or not, but I know the air conditioner's not working in here. It's under control. We've got it under control. They're on the roof right now. They should be on the roof right now, working on it. Moving on, I did list 2 projects. These are projects that are recommended for funding, but not with the capital fund. The 2 projects at the bottom are so large and so big in their scope that they need their own funding source. And I'm sure John and Denise will be talking to you about that in the future, but I highlighted them specifically because they are recommended to go forward, but we just can't fund them with the projected funding for CIP right now.
I actually was going to ask you about that before you got to this slide. For projects such as that, I hope we try to get this one done sooner rather than later, but for projects that are identified 10 years out, are we saving anything throughout the fiscal years in anticipation of doing these larger projects? Or is it just every year just allocating the funds?
What I'm gonna ask is that we maybe defer that conversation for
Okay.
future when Denise and John can talk to you about
No.
funding sources. Okay. She says no, yeah.
Yeah.
Our capital improvement fund is only about $26 million, and it's.
And it zeroes out, or,
We have
Yeah.
more projects than we have.
okay.
Gotcha.
My-
There's a
my-
couple that stand out on here. Fort Fremont Preserve Stairs and Rails, that is critical.
Yes, sir.
If you've been there, like I have, and witnessed people actually falling,
Yeah.
that
And
is so critical.
And that's a project identified by Stephanie and Chuck, and that's definitely on the list for funding.
Yeah, so sorry for keep jumping out of my seat here.
No, that's okay.
This is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at, we had other requests. So if you look at the total number of requests that were received, then staff goes through and ranks those requests. These are not the only two requests for passive parks that were made. They were just they were the highest priority two that would fit in the budget that we thought were a priority because of their location, because of the safety aspects, because of where we are with the planning of Pineview Preserve, and then the safety aspect of Fort Fremont. So I just want to make the point that when you look at these are not all of the asks. These are just the ranked portions that fit into what we thought we would have in our budget. And I think everybody who is represented on this list could stand here and say exactly the same thing. So it's been vetted, but we agree that everything on this list is the highest priority, and there's a number of reasons why.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
hope that helps.
Absolutely, but that one is, that's safety and liability.
Thank you.
And again, what you're looking at is the list of projects that are recommended for funding. What Chuck just mentioned is my next slide, but this is the list of projects that are recommended for funding, and matches up with the projected revenue as it stands today, with a couple of exceptions as I've listed below. So, and David, I wanted to make one comment about your comment. I know Denise says no, but in where I sit from my chair on July 1st, you guys give me a Dave Ramsey envelope full of cash. And it's my job to have that envelope emptied by June 30th. So anyway, moving on. This is where, so I've spent all the money. So we're talking about what didn't get recommended for funding, but is needed. I need to say that over and over again. These are projects that have been identified as being needed, but unfortunately are on the bullpen waiting to be called up if additional money becomes available. And you see that as about $70 million of additional requests for this year. And 68, actually it's 69 projects. That number says 68 because one of them actually has a little bit of funding, so it didn't fall out as being unfunded. $70 million, you see again the ask. This is skewed a little bit. You see that big pie wedge for Public Works. That's the administration building I mentioned in the previous slide. So it skews it a little bit. But you see there's definitely a lot of needs, nearly 70 projects, $70 million needed for these additional projects. It was delayed and then it took off on me. Here's again summary of the list of projects. I did my best to kind of sort them by department again so that you can scroll them easily and see what those projects entail. And again, you'll have a very detailed description of each project and its dollar amounts for the individual projects with your CIP book in the budget when you finally get the recommended budget put together, so that you'll be able to read these individually. But again, they span the gamut. You see, it's as Chuck just pointed out, everybody got something, but they didn't get everything. So you have the unfunded list of projects from each department listed here. And that continues on. Again, they're grouped up by different departments, so it continues on. And then there are a few handful of transportation-related projects that are competing for CIP funding that are not, in their current plan, are not being funded by other sources like LATs or 1 cent sales tax or anything like that.
Hey, Eric, when these things come into you, they come in with a dollar amount, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The department head will put together a project sheet. It has a very detailed description of what the project is. It has a justification paragraph to explain why it's so important. That gets back to the ranking criteria. And then it has broken down design, construction, cost by year. We help with those estimates some because some of these departments say, I need something, but they don't really have the ability to estimate the construction cost or design cost. And so that's where facilities management and CIP comes into play. We assist with that. But yes, we have a detailed cut sheet on every one of these projects, and then we total those to come up with the numbers I'm showing you today.
Now,
I had a question.
go ahead, Alice.
Well, the DSN to build the two houses are pretty new, Deanne and Bostic. Did they have flooding or something that caused flooring replacement? Do you know?
No, it's just worn out. It's routine replacement. I know the buildings are, no, To answer your question, no, there's not any drainage or flooding issues with those. It's just the carpets and stuff are wore out in those, and so they've asked for us to fund a replacement of that flooring material.
Okay,
They-
I mean,
they-
Bostic,
they're
I think, is
heavy-
less
they're
than
heavy
5 years
use.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Building
okay,
grade.
thank you.
Eric, I have a question, please. Did I miss it, or is there nothing here to create a rec center on St. Helena Island?
There is not a project recommended for that at this time that I'm aware of. Now, Mr. Brown, our new director's in the back. I'll be happy to put him on the spot. But no, there was not a request for a new facility on St. Helena.
I have a question for you. With DSN and some of these other departments, or is there any state or federal funding that we could tap into that would be available?
DSN, I believe, Audra's coming.
Okay.
Denise and Audra coming to save me on this one.
I got you. It's just, it's a
Yeah.
longer list of.
These departments look for every funding
I'm
source
sure.
they possibly can, and that gets into those cut sheets. You'll see the different funding sources that they're identifying, and then ultimately they, you want to make up the delta with, if I can't find it anywhere else, I need CIP funding. So that's how it makes this list.
Yes, sir. To answer your question, each house, there is state funding that is allocated to each house. So yes, there is some funding from the state that helps with these homes.
Would there be anything we could do with a nonprofit organization coming in to help meet some of these needs, or does it have to go through?
Well, they're
I don't
county-owned
understand.
facilities,
Okay.
so I'm not quite
That's
sure
what's
how
in the
that would
state.
come into
Okay.
play if we, so. But I think the important thing is preventive maintenance, so that's what we're looking at.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Eric, since we're going to be receiving all of this documentation, and it's going to be posted on our website so that the public can see this, under transportation-related, it says reimagine Ribel Road. We've specifically taken out the words reimagine. It's just the Ribel Road improvements. So would you make sure that gets changed?
Excellent point, Chairman. We don't use that word reimagine
Okay.
anymore.
My apologies on that.
No,
This is
that's
the
okay.
project title as of December.
Right.
And so I was quite honestly not aware of that, but we'll make that
During
change.
discussions, we've changed that, so. it says
Carolyn's
Ribel
making it
Road.
now, and we're gonna get that information
Thank
back to Sarah. The CIP book I keep referring to, this massive Excel spreadsheet that I keep referring to, we're gonna get that sent out to you after this meeting, and we can make that change before we send it out, so.
Great, thank you.
All right. The very last thing is just talk about projects, and we talked this a second ago, projects seeking other funding sources. They're not asking us for CIP funds or general fund money. They're saying these are identified needs, and if we get the alternative source, we will go forward. And this is another one where I refer to initiatives such as the referendum and the 1 cent sales tax. That big red wedge is taken care of with that. So there's just a few projects related to that. If you take transportation aside for a second, there's only a few projects left. These are enterprise funds. These are impact fee projects, stuff that will happen eventually when the funding's made available, but they're not seeking funding. There's just a handful of them, but I wanted to list them anyway so that you have that complete list, because what you have now in this PowerPoint presentation and in the CIP book you will be given is all 200 and something projects that I mentioned with 212 tabs on that workbook, so have fun. It's a large Excel workbook with 200 and something sheets in it, and each sheet being a project description.
We're not small.
Yeah. So at that point, I'm open for any questions. I can go back.
Any questions from members sitting here? How about online? Any questions from? Okay. Well, thank you very much. This was very extensive. We appreciate it. There's a lot of good things in there. There's a lot of things that the population can take a look at that lives here, that know that we're trying to have a great quality of life. And it takes some money to maintain that quality of life.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Next is Valerie. Good morning, Valerie.
Thank you so much. So while Sarah puts up the slides and the PDF document that I provided to you. Did they get it last night? Okay. So this is a recap of the elected officials' budgets, and then a couple other additional pages in there as well. Denise and I conducted about 38 meetings with department heads over the course of 8 days, and are still massaging the data and the information a little bit on a regular basis. But as you can see, we put in here, this details what their request is for 2025, what their request was for 24, where they are year-to-date for 24, and then a difference between their 24 requests and their 25 requests, and then the percentage difference. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see their total. And so we'll take a look mostly at the ones that are over 1% difference. And then just keep in mind too, that salaries and wages, we just carried over what they had for 24 into 25 on most of them, pending the comp and class study that is being conducted as we speak. So you'll see, if you go to the third one, which is family court, you'll see that they asked for a 1.36% increase, and that's mainly for some budget software that DSS pays for now, that we're gonna have to absorb. And then if you turn to the
I'm sorry,
magistrate.
did we get this in advance? I don't see it. I didn't get this one.
Yeah, I don't think I got it either.
Sent this morning, because it was emailed to us last night.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Well, you got it this morning,
Oh, all right.
so
Thank you.
if you have the ability, you know,
Yeah,
your
I'll-
computer in front of you, you might be able to see it. If you don't, we're just winging it as we speak.
And you'll
that's
be able
okay.
to look at it later.
Yes, we'll look at it later.
That's fine.
And then, so then if you look at the magistrate sheet, they have a 3% increase, roughly because of a 4.45% increase in salaries and wages, which they plugged in themselves. So that is sort of an earmark there. And then if you look at the probate judge, has about a 2.5% increase. And this is based on just a lot of additional needs. They are gonna add some staff to their team. And so they're looking to add more equipment and all the other ancillary items that go along with that. And then the sheriff's office is in here, but their employees are not part of the comp and class study, so
Right.
they did plug in some numbers for their salaries and wages as well.
Can
And there's notes on here, you'll see
Hold on a
if,
second.
we're still on family court.
Yeah.
oh, I apologize,
you,
I was,
Yes.
Oh, I'm-
Finger up there will work. Unless Mike-
Sorry about that. I just
oh,
wanted
I'm
to-
so sorry. Ah, look at that. All right, so I'm at the sheriff's office. Like I said, there's notes included. You'll see the notes column to the right. So if during the budget meeting, we plug notes in or they had notes put in there before we met that describes what their needs are. So I transferred those over into this document. So if you have any specific questions about any of these, the sheriff's office is here and they can address those, or any of the others, I can take that and get back to you on it. So then we have the treasurer's office, who also asked for an increase, a total of about 6.66%. And that's mostly coming from the salaries and wages area. But again, they do fall under the comp and class study, so that is her request. We'll see how that shakes out as well. And then I want to move over to the direct subsidies. So this is sort of a recap of the meeting that we had in the Finance Committee last week. These were the requests. Some of these people presented, some did not. But I wanted to get it on paper so you guys could see it in one snapshot. I wanted to call attention to the Keep Beaufort County Beautiful request. When they submitted their request to us, they requested 270,000. We had a meeting with them back in December, and their request was 189 at that time. And so we were just hoping to get some direction and clarification on where, based on their presentation, we might find money for
Yes,
them.
a couple of people have voiced concerns about getting more information before we can make a decision. I know they had put in like $180,000 for plantings, and we're concerned about plantings of what? Is it trees? What kind of trees? Is it plants? What
It's
kind of
wild,
plants?
it's wildflowers, but I'm sure, Paula and I can get more details.
Right, so we
It's
need to know
permanent it's not trees.
Okay.
It was 7,500 for wildflower and 82,000 for planting of the 2 circles.
Yeah.
and
Right.
150
Yeah.
Are they annuals or perennials?
They'd have to clarify that for us.
Okay.
And my question, has that been bid out, the $82,000 that they?
Right, probably not.
Because I didn't see anything that was bid.
Right. Mm-mm.
Okay,
And I do know they have a committee meeting tomorrow, so.
all right.
I can also get
So
some
if you
questions
could
to
pass
him.
that on, Alice, so we can get some more clarification.
Yeah, and Paula's, yeah.
Yeah.
We both will.
Okay.
We both go to those meetings.
And let me
Sure.
just, since we're on that subject real quick, is I know that when they do plantings, however, that means that our maintenance increases
Yeah.
quite a bit for our, whoever's maintaining it, whether it's our maintenance staff or the town of Bluffton. And we actually, on the Bluffton Parkway, which was a county road, we took out plantings because it was costing too much to keep them up, and they looked.
I think, Mark, these are plantings like you see North Carolina Highway and Georgia Highway.
Yeah.
They're self-maintaining,
Yeah.
they're not like the
Okay.
plantings that we
Well,
have,
I'm just bringing that
in,
up as
in
a,
the Parkway, but we can get that all clarified.
that's a good
Yes,
point, Mark.
Sure.
Thank you.
But yeah, there's different kinds of plantings, you know, some are
Yeah.
high maintenance.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right, so then this is the departmental budget overview that also describes the percent increase. This is for departments that had more than 10% increase in their, requested in their budget. Just to highlight it, so you guys are thinking about it as we move into our next phase of the budget documentation and process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
I'm sure there may be some questions
I'm
once
sure.
everybody has this in hand, can go through it, and we'll
Just-
filter it.
Yep, let me
back.
know. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Denise, you're gonna talk about the special revenue funds.
I don't have a presentation. I'm just gonna run my mouth. We're just gonna talk about it. Okay, so there are just a couple of special revenue funds that I just wanted to touch base on. All right, let me get that up. Okay, so let's start with the local A tax and hospitality tax. So going back, and I'm only bringing these up because of how they relate to our budget, of course. So going back to Eric's presentation and Stephanie and Chuck's, the discussion about Fort Fremont and the Pineview Preserve projects. And I know that they're budgeted right now currently in the CIP fund, their ask is, and it's about $2.5 million. But you could, if you wanted to, you could use local A tax or hospitality tax to fund these projects. I'm just throwing that out there. We will take direction from you all though, and, 'cause
Would that have to go through a committee again, or how would that?
no, okay, so this year, and this is another reason I wanted to talk about local A-tax and H-tax. So this year, we're going to draft a budget ordinance, and I've already got one drafted, for local A-tax and then a budget ordinance for hospitality tax. So that when we adopt our budgets in June, we can include these two separate additional budget ordinances to be adopted. And that way throughout the year, and it'll have a line item budget and a total in the budget ordinance. There will be a total dollar amount for an estimated, budgets are estimates. And so if we wanted to appropriate through those line items, we could do it by vote of council instead of 3 readings again in a public hearing. So it'll save time throughout the year through the process. So those will be coming forward to you all in May for your
Okay.
review.
So you will tell us the specific projects that could be used by ATAX.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one, the next special revenue fund is the Public Defender's Fund. So the Public Defender, we currently supplement from our general fund $1.5 million roughly for their operations. And that is Beaufort County's portion of caseload and all of the costs that go along with that. So 2 fiscal years ago, the public defender was told by prior staff members who are no longer with us that they could be part of the county's comp and class plan. After meeting with Ms. Ward and us meeting with them, Ms. Ward discovered through the state code of laws that they are to be part of what's called the state merit system. So they cannot be part of the county's comp and class system. So, and we let them know that, so they are aware of that. But in the meantime, before that happened, their employees were given what all of the other county employees were given as increases. And they were treated as they were part of our comp and class. So that resulted in an increase in expenses, of course, for them, and an increase in their budget line items for this coming year. So that being said, they are going to be requesting an additional $499,890 in their budget to cover those increases in salaries and benefits. However, they have gone and done their due diligence to the other counties that they service and asked for increases from those counties as well. I know that at least 2 of the counties are increasing. I'm not so sure about the other 1 or 2. But I do know that we are going to be receiving additional funds from the other counties.
So question, this was brought up to me, I believe sometime last year, that the state had awarded some retention funds. I think Charleston Public Defenders got it. I think some of the other circuit public defenders got that state funding. Apparently our county employees, or Beaufort County Public Defenders, did not get that.
We did. They did.
They did get it?
So that helped tremendously. That helped tremendously in the current fiscal year. So what we did in the current fiscal year is when they received those funds, we increased their revenue by that amount and their salary line items by that amount, or
Is
else
that
they
a
would have been in a
recurring-
deficit.
Is that a recurring fund from the state, or was that just
I
a
am not
one-time?
sure.
Okay.
You would have to ask them.
That's
But I think it is, because they did budget for an increase from the state this year
Okay.
as well. So, but I'm not 100% accurate. She would have to clarify that for you,
So the public defender is asking for roughly $500,000.
roughly.
Okay. As an increase?
Yes, because once you increase salaries and benefits, it's an ongoing expense. You can't
Okay.
take it away, so
But those salaries have already been paid.
they have been.
Now they're asking for another $500,000 increase over what we've already paid. And they're part of the state
State
merit system. So
They
I'm
would have
sorry,
had a
but I have
deficit
a
this.
disconnect.
I'm
of-
sorry. They would have had a deficit this year had they not received funding from the state.
Okay,
And they were told that they were part of our comp and class, so they got increases
okay,
by us,
right,
and they should not have.
got that.
So.
But
the
those
cost-
salaries were in fact paid.
Yes, they were.
So,
But they were not budgeted. They were not budgeted in the current year's budget.
oh,
Yes, because they were,
all right,
yeah, they were removed.
gotcha.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So so they're going to ask for $499,890 as an increase in their total budget. However, the county's portion of that ask is $424,000. So the difference will come from the other counties.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
That makes them whole then.
It
And they're
does.
no longer part of our comp and class. Any raises they're going to get have to come through the state
state.
merit system.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so that's public defender. That's it for the special revenue funds. There was one special revenue fund that's not been touched in years, and maybe someone could shed some light on this. It's Barton's Run. Yep. So Barton's Run, Mark and I discussed this. I don't know. Chuck, do you know what Barton's Run is? Was it an impact fee or?
Yeah, we discussed this morning. I was trying to jog my memory. I think it was back whenever we put in the impact fees for the schools, and they were just starting out as a new development, and we required that they pay any new school impact fees. But again, that's just my memory. But that's back when we first started
Yeah,
in
and then
2018, I think.
there
as well.
came a suit over that
Yes.
because there was, well, this one is paying, but this one isn't,
Right.
so that's not fair. I'm developing over here and here,
So I
and
don't know what it is.
all
but
of
that's
that
just a-
stopped.
Sure, so I can answer the question. I think the one that you're thinking of was the Malin Bluff.
Okay.
And when we
Yes.
adopted the school impact fee, it superseded the original fee. And then when we retracted the fee, all of those fees went away.
Yeah.
Barton's Run is a separate impact fee. I'll have to go look to see if it's a road or exactly which one it is, but it was part of the development agreement that is to be paid per lot, that is separate from all of our other impact fees. But I can give you that ordinance, I can,
Where is Barton's Run?
it's in Bluffton. Where's,
I don't know, but we haven't had any activity since 2017.
right, and the reason why is you have, so as these things build out, you typically have different landowners who buy two lots. So they may have a vacant lot that's next to them or vacant lots that are still in the neighborhood that have yet to be developed. Well, you don't pay impact fees until you pull a building permit for the lot. If it sits vacant, we can't force them to build it and pay the fee until they do. But I'm happy to go back, re-identify which ones have been
Okay.
paid, which ones are still vacant, but that's where it came from, that's what it is. So,
How much money's in that, and what can we do?
45,000 roughly.
45,000?
yeah, it's not a very big development, and it wasn't a whole lot of money. That's, when you get into development agreements that run 20, 25 years, all these things happened decades ago, and you have these residuals that sort of sit there, but they're identified for specific purposes, which really limits us on how and where we can spend them. But I'll be happy to go back, put all that together, and give you the history of it. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Chuck.
you.
And one more, so Christine and Valerie and I found some money yesterday
Oh.
for Parks and Rec. Where is Eric? Did he leave? Oh, okay, well, he missed the good news. No. I'll let him know. I will let him know. Anyway, it's about $500,000 that is for capital that they could use. So, and then also, going back to the capital projects in that budget, what's also included in there is the sheriff has asked for vehicles, I think how much is it? 2.3 million, or? Yeah, vehicles and equipment, around 2.3 or 2.4 million dollars. That is included in our CIP budget. The whole amount is. So I just wanted to make that clear, that it's in there right now. So,
Okay.
that's that. And then I think Todd, is he up next? Okay, so Todd, I would like to have Todd Davis come up and let you know about the vehicles and equipment, since we're talking about that.
Oh, great.
And
Okay.
lease option versus purchase. So he's going to discuss those numbers with you briefly. I think he's got a small PowerPoint.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Tom.
All right, I received 104 requests for vehicles and equipment. 74 of them were vehicles and 30 of them were equipment requests. Right now, the general fund is asking for 36 vehicles, roughly $1.6 million. And then 6 equipment requests, roughly $730,000. That's around $2.3 million. Like I said, Sheriff, Denise already covered the sheriff's office, around $2 million. The plan is to meet everybody's request is to go to a leasing agreement for heavy equipment and vehicles. This slide right here is going to be the department breakdown of what everybody's requesting, the amount, so they can budget accordingly. If there's no questions on there, I can go to the next slide. General fund only, purchase versus lease. Right now, the purchase, if we purchase all the vehicles, it's going to be around 3.4 million. And if we lease the vehicles, it'll be 1.6 upfront cost. For equipment, we're looking at 1.2 million. If we lease it, it's 732,000. That's the huge difference in savings for upfront cost. That's our goal moving forward, so we can meet everyone's request.
In the leasing of each of those, for the vehicles, is it a 3-year lease, 5-year lease?
It's gonna be a 5-year lease,
Okay.
unlimited miles for the vehicles, and for equipment, it's gonna be a 5-year lease with 1,000 hours.
Okay,
And there'll be a rotation, and then they'll handle the sale of it, and then whatever's left over will come back to us. It may reduce our yearly fee.
and have we taken a look at our current fleet to see what can be gotten rid of? What is gonna be traded in?
I'm currently going through all the lists right now, through everyone's department. We have a very full fleet, so I'm trying to cover all that up, so.
Okay, very good. Any questions?
Has there been, actually, one question, have y'all looked into any surplus vehicles from the federal government or state governments to help supplement? any of
The
this?
sheriff only has access to the 1033 program. We work on their equipment quite a bit, and a lot of times it's not in the greatest conditions, sometimes. But for some of the equipment they have, there's no way we could probably use it.
Yeah.
So
Understood.
it's gonna be like the MRAPs, Humvees and stuff like that.
Any other questions?
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
just a comment, Joe, based on my experience with the federal surplus program, by the time those things are surplus, they have very little value, and the repair costs and maintenance on them are sometimes in excess of what you can do with regard to a lease for a new vehicle.
Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with them as well. Okay,
Sometimes you can find a couple of nice specialty items, but if it's just fleet vehicles, it's not a wise place to
Right.
go.
right,
Thank you.
okay. Okay. Is that all the presentations today, John?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Any further
Mr.
questions?
Passman, I have
Yes.
a question.
Yes,
Or comment. You know me, I prefer to have all my documents to look at in advance. So that way, I know what I'm talking about when I ask a question. So I would really request that we get them in advance instead of the day of or the night before. That's my request.
duly noted.
I will apologize for that. Most of staff was working well into the night to get our numbers together. So I'll take the blame for that. We'll work a little harder to make sure we get it done ahead of time. Beaufort County's a busy place, so we'll do better.
I understand that. I just would not like to ask questions before I know what I'm doing.
Okay, any further comments? Seeing none, this meeting is now adjourned.
Oh, we're done.